He has successful experience in starting and executing new projects and stabilizing new business or critical complex new initiatives. Thank you so much for joining us here. I would now invite on stage Mr. Maninder Sethi, founder of Wedding Asia. He's a pioneer in the wedding exhibition in India in the B2C domain, having started the first edition of Wedding Asia in the year 2006. So he's joining us shortly. I would now invite on the stage Mr. Avishek Das, CEO, Mumbai Travel Retail Private Limited. He brings with him over 24 years of experience in consumer goods. He began his career with Bacardi India and later moved on to Pernod, Ricard and Diageo. I would now invite on stage Mr. Suresh Menon, Secretary General, International Spirits and Wine Association of India. He has more than 30 years of experience in India's Alcobev Riches industry segment. And last but not the least, I would now invite on stage Mr. Vishal Deorah, co-founder of the whiskey company and the warehouse Guwahati. He is fueled by his passion for Alcobev industry. His primary focus is to build a portfolio for delightful wines, spirits, beers, cigars, mixers, and spread spirits education with the intention of putting the Northeast India on the global map. And ladies and gentlemen, I'd also request Mr. Maninder Sethi, founder of Wedding Asia, to please join us up the stage. And this completes the entire panel. Let's give them a round of applause as I would now hand it over to the moderator of the session, Mr. Mahesh Kanchan.
Thank you so much. Please. I thought I'll just set the context for the topic of today's discussion. Just a bit of a caveat that I would like to attach is the fact that I am I'm from the Alcobev industry, but currently in the FMCG industry. So one thing that comes out when I was in the Alcobev industry, having worked both in spirits and beer, is we're talking about ease of doing business in India. But when it comes to this particular industry, unfortunately, it's extremely complex. It's extremely challenging. And it gets tougher as it keeps going. So I think we've got an august panel ranging from an industry body to people who are handling global travel retail, to people who have got a lovely off-trade kind of an outlet, and of course, someone who manages exhibitions for weddings, which is probably one of the biggest touch points when it comes to Alcobev. So if you look at it in Alcobev, shopper experience varies big time as far as this country is concerned. So the city that we are in today right now, Gurgaon, probably gives one of the finest experiences when it comes to buying a bottle of beer or a bottle of spirits. You go a few kilometers down the line, the experience completely changes. And that happens across the country. You know, you have clearly open format outlets in places like Mumbai, some in Bangalore, and of course in Gurgaon, where the ambience is very different. Here, I mean, you know, my better half can actually walk into the outlet and buy a bottle of spirits, but probably she won't do it in a Chennai or any other place. So experience varies. Regulation, as I said, it's probably one of the most toughest and the most complex industry that I've worked in. Coming back to FMCG, it is a sigh of relief for me because it's so much more simpler. And you can do that much more, you know, your hands are not tied the way it is in the Alcobev industry. So we've got an august panel, as I said, a lot of domain expertise in travel retail, in industry bodies, and also in case of a big cohort like weddings, and as I said, in case of fancy off-trade in northeastern part of the country. So let me start with Abhishek, your case. Abhishek takes care of the Mumbai travel retail part of the business. I believe but there are 57 million people who fly in and out of India internationally. That's the number that I actually heard. And what I got to know is hardly 10 to 12% of the people must be buying Alcobev spirits when they fly in or out of these fancier airports. And bulk of the traffic, I'm assuming, is in Delhi, Mumbai, and Bangalore. So one is, why is it that the penetration of Alcobev in terms of global travelers are just low double digit? Why is it so? Despite the fact that you get the best of the brands, the best of the experience, great prices, why is it low double digits? And what are you doing to expand the penetration that every guy who flies in and out, every lady or man flying in and out, probably should carry a bottle of spirits? What would you be doing from a Mumbai travel retail perspective?
Thanks, Mahesh. Good afternoon, everyone. That question of yours is what keeps me up all night. Why is it so low, right? So I'll speak for Mumbai Duty Free. In Mumbai, we have a challenge that is bulk of the business is from arrivals, right? And arrivals is the disadvantaged leg of any journey, right? Let's assume you take a flight from Dubai, you have 2.5, 3 hours of dwell time, similar prices, similar range, although we have over 250 single malls. So we differentiate ourselves in range, right? We offer, like I said, 250 single malls from not only Scotland, but from even different parts of the world that are. Coming back to the disadvantaged sector, you have people with dwell time buying in Dubai. They come into Mumbai, right? Immigration doesn't make life very easy for everyone. You're in a rush to go out. You land pretty much late at night. So how do I hold you? How do I, get you to buy a bottle of alcohol at that time? So one is that. Second is alcohol per se, right? If you look at the latest incident study, and I think Mr. Menon can correct me if I'm wrong, but alcohol consumption is about 30% in this cohort, right? So let's assume that 100% of that 30% buys, right? We are at about 14%. Then Dubai has an equal right to get the balance 16, right? So that's from the maths perspective. Now, coming to the next part of your question, that what is it that we do? We believe that over and above price arbitrage, which is one of the main reasons why duty-free exists, we believe that we need to entertain our shoppers, right? Take it beyond a mere transaction, right? And let me tell you how we do it. So, departure, where traditionally people are in a hurry to go board their flight, again, same challenges, right? A lot of traffic, queuing at security. Do you guys face challenges at queuing at security? Yeah? Let me hear a yay. Do you guys, when you fly overseas, do you have challenges at immigration? Is it a long wait? So what happens after that is you want to rush because no one wants to miss an international flight, right? Would any of you want to miss an international flight? So then how do I stop you? How do I make you browse through the entire beautiful range of products that we have? So what we did was we were the first airport to bring in a live DJ. So you come out of immigration and suddenly there's this DJ playing and you're like, my goodness, what is that? So that makes you stop, right? Our objective is when people are in a hurry to go board their flights, what can we do to make them stop, right? So here's an experience, right? A live DJ, fantastic DJ, amazing music, and that's when our brand ambassadors take over to try and get you to buy something. And that's, by the way, working really well for us. So people love to be entertained, right? So how do we entertain them in a shopping environment? The second is people love to feel special, right? So how can we make you feel special, right? We have something called a white glove service, which if you book, you have a dedicated person that assists you so that you don't spend time trying to browse the entire 25,000 square feet of retail space. You tell the lady what you want, and she helps you get it, express checkout and things like that, right? So you feel special by avoiding the queue. So things like that, and as we go along, we'll talk a bit more about what we do in arrivals. But I'll hand it back to you now.
Sure. Thanks, Abhishek. I just want to draw a parallel. Once I was doing my market visit in Navi Mumbai, I walked into an outlet in Sanpada. It's one of the suburbs of Navi Mumbai. And I was stunned. It was probably one of the finest Alcobev off-trade outlet that I'd seen. Massive screens, great amount of music being pumped in. And I don't know if the outlet is still there because I'm no longer in the industry. But when I asked the question to the outlet owner saying that, why are you doing so much? You're going to make the same amount of money that a neighborhood store makes. But he says, when I put up such an ambience, the guy who's probably come to buy an entry-level scotch ends up buying probably a premium scotch and so on and so forth. The guy who would have probably walked away with maybe a bottle walks away with 2-3 bottles. He says the music actually pumps in the energy and makes something happen in the shopper's mindset. He buys more and buys more premium. That was the research that he did. So something similar when it comes to DJs playing music. Super. Now I'll move on to Abhijit. Abhijit takes care of marketing for the Delhi duty free. I think you have biggest competition, not just from a Shanghai or a Dubai, you have the biggest competition from the L1 in Gurgaon, if I have to give it a context. But yeah, as he said, it opened eyes saying that there is a 50% probability that the 30% community who's flying can buy it from the origin destination where you have swankier airports, not to say that Indian airports are equally good. But as you have competition from arrivals coming in from Dubai, Shanghai and Singapore, how do you say that the Delhi duty-free is a better off retail experience from an assortment point of view, from a buying experience point of view, and of course price?
Sure. Let me put some data in a different perspective. As you said, 12 to 14, or let's say in Delhi, it's 15% of people who buy. Globally, if we compare all the other airports, other than, let's say, the Middle Eastern countries where there are many Indians, the penetration of liquor buyers is below 10. We can comfortably say that we are almost double of many other countries. That's one. More than 60% of our business comes from liquor. So it's not that we are selling very less. We are actually doing a fabulous business as primarily a liquor retailer. Coming back to the challenge, the real challenge lies is what I say is, of course, I'll say every new airport in India today is equally swankier than any other European airports. It's the question of newness. I can easily say Bangalore is probably the best looking airport in the country now. What we all collectively in India is suffering is something called, I think, image deficit. People still love to carry the same vibe liquor, the same Chanel, the same Dior perfume in a London duty-free bag or in a Singapore duty-free bag as compared to India. And that's what is our real challenge. We have to fight this image deficit of Indian duty-free retailers, or for an end consumer, it is Indian airport. They really do not understand who operates Mumbai, who operates Delhi, who operates Bangalore. That's point one. For us, I think the biggest challenge being in Delhi is it's a lucrative market. We are amongst one of the best target audiences or the wealthiest people in the country. We are able to, I think the consumer in this part of the country is the most demanding. The biggest challenge for us, let it be assortment, let it be pricing. We all know L1s are very cheap. They are cheap. But the only way we have realized is we can win this game is by giving a sustainable customer service. My shopper's experience in his every latest or her latest visit has to be equal or better than their last visit. That's the only way we can sustain. And that experience is sum of everything. It's sum of range, it's sum of price, it is sum of brand ambassador, how they are interacting with them. What is the billing time? How are they going out? And what is my after sales? We take our after sales service very seriously. We're one of the few retailers in the country where within 30 days you have a problem, you can return back the goods and you'll be refunded. It's almost like Amazon or Swiggy.
So common points that's coming both from Abhishek and Abhijit is one is experience. I think that's something that's unanimously stemming through both the discussions. Price was one, yes, but I think if experience is top-notch, people are willing to pay a few more dollars for buying their bottle. Assortment, and one thing that came out very unique is after-sales service. That's something it's an aha for me saying that I did not know of that. You can return a bottle of alcohol back. Few more questions to the global travel retail guys before I move on. You sell a lot of tobacco, you sell a lot of spirits, you also sell a lot of perfume and high-end stuff. How important is spirits in the overall portfolio that you carry? If you want to quote some numbers, that will be great. What percentage of your sales is spirits? And if it is important, I'm assuming it's fairly important. How does, let's say, any global brand which wants to get empaneled with Mumbai or Delhi duty free, how do they go about doing it? Is it something that you guys decide which brands to be empaneled, or brands approach you? And is there any kind of work that you guys do together with brands to make your numbers happen even better? So collaborations with brands, etc. We do see sometimes you get these trolleys, etc. on a Johnny Walker, etc. But that's besides the stuff. What else would you do to collaborate with brands? So one is, how does a brand get empaneled? How big is Alcobev for you guys? How does a brand get empaneled? And more importantly, how do you jointly work with brands to bring up this experience quotient?
So broadly for Delhi, I'll speak, alcohol stands for between 60 to 65% of the business, as I previously quoted. So that's the largest category. It's the largest category by the sale. It's the largest category by the margin. So it drives the bottom line and top line both at the same time. Listing brands are very fair and a simple process. There are category teams for each of the categories. There is a category head. You go and meet them, you show your product. If there is a need, it gets listed over a period of time. Obviously, there has to be a need. It has to satisfy my top line and bottom line requirements for the brand. How open we are in terms of listing brands, just to give you, without taking any names, 5 years back, my top 5 suppliers in liquor were the top 5 suppliers in India, without taking any name, the obvious names. Today, in top 5, I have one distributor. So, not one, let's say 2 distributors. So that's how open we are in terms of listing. Very broadly, for top 7 to 8 brands, it's what we call it is a JVP, joint business plan, is what we work year on a year with them. The objective is, obviously a brand will always have a very different game in terms of they'll always have agendas like marketing, launching new brands. For us, it will be generally driving the sales. But what we try and do it is once or twice in a year, we share our numbers in terms of where the business is not growing, where the business is growing, purely from our perspective, as we say, penetration, average ticket value, things like that. And we work on a strategy. The strategies might involve, as you said, it can be as simple as trolley bags, it can be price corrections, it can be, like for us, I'll tell you, as you rightly said, pricing is a big issue in Delhi. So launching exclusive ranges which are only available in travel retail, so that pricing is not an issue.
Thanks. I think Abhijit has covered it all. It's pretty much the same for us in terms of listing. In terms of alcohol as an overall percentage of our business, it used to be around the same range as Abhijit, 60%. For a host of reasons, we've consciously tried to bring down our over-reliance on alcohol. And we've focused consciously on categories like confectionery, right? Bringing in world's best high ATV brands like Venchi chocolates for the first time in India, right? No House chocolates, right? Whitakers from New Zealand, right? And this has really helped get people move up the value chain because you don't get them in the domestic market, right? So one of the reasons to exist is, of course, the price differential with the domestic market. And the second, of course, is you keep products that usually you won't find in the domestic market. So it's primarily these 2 reasons why we exist. And we are working on both across categories like confectionery, as I just mentioned, as well as PNC. PNC is perfumes and cosmetics. Perfumes and cosmetics in departure today is our #1 category. It's not alcohol anymore, right? And very happy to mention that we have every possible brand from across the world in terms of perfumes and cosmetics, including Kylie Cosmetics by the renowned Kylie Jenner of the Jenner and Kardashian family, being the only airport in Asia Pacific to have that. Right? So we look at these differentiated products, making sure that our consumers get them only at Mumbai duty free, and that's why it helps us, exist. We also, sorry, last point. We also haven't forgotten our collectors and our connoisseurs. We have a fantastic range of rare and prestige malts. And very recently, we sold Beaumont 1965 from the Beam Centauri Group, a 52-year-old, for a whopping 42 lakhs for a bottle, right? So I didn't get a chance to sip it, just sold it. But so yeah, we focus on these attributes to ensure that our consumers, like I said, have a fantastic experience shopping with us, moving over and beyond a mere transaction.
Thanks so much. I think one is great to know that Alcobev is 60-70% of the overall business. That's a very important category. Great to know that, even if you're not in the top 5, you still have a chance to get it listed. And JBPs, I'm sure, would go a long way. Now, let me introduce you to Suresh. I still recall when I was a young manager in a building called Lay Park, Richmond. He was on the 5th floor. I was on the 3rd floor. He was one of the leadership team members in United Spiritz, McDowell and Company. So do look up to him. So call him Suresh, sir. Sir, I started off with the fact that it's an extremely complex industry. And being an industry body like ISWAI, if you could tell us what are the challenges that manufacturers, marketeers in the industry face from a regulatory licensing point of view. And I will then ask another question if you can start from a regulatory licensing. And what is ISWAI doing to make things much more easier?
Yeah. So as far as this industry is concerned, it's probably extremely highly regulated. Even we jocularly say that even if you have to breathe, you need somebody's permission to actually do that. Of course, shifting goods from one place to another, buying goods, selling goods, the works. You have got some kind of government permission to obtain. On the manufacturing sector and procurement, there is, an enormous number of applications that and permissions that you need to take. You want to change your factory layout from a straight line bottling line to an S or to an L-shaped bottling line. You have to get permissions, approvals, etc. But on the retail side, the biggest issue that the industry faces is that you don't have more than about 85,000 off-trade retail outlets to whom you can sell. That is the biggest challenge, and therefore the restricted number kind of confers a certain amount of monopoly situation on the other side of the table. So if you are in a position where you can only sell in a particular territory to a customer who owns multiple retail stores, then your negotiation capabilities are somewhat restricted. Then it's your choice as a company as to whether you want to be selling in that territory or you want to exit if the terms are not worth your while. That is as far as the suppliers are concerned. As far as the consumers are concerned, you have two kinds of licensing arrangements as far as retail is concerned. One is that where there is an annual or a biannual kind of situation where licenses get renewed. Now, the person who's got a license today, he doesn't invest in that, in his outlet very often. There are exceptions, of course, but very often he doesn't invest in that facility because he realizes that come what may, the guys have to come to him, the consumers have to come to him because there's really nobody else in that area. So he also does not invest in the experience that the consumer could get. You've seen the kind of stores that used to exist in Delhi and probably still do, considering that the old policy is back. There was a time when stores started up in malls. There was a minimum necessary condition about the size of the stores that came up. So shopping experience did change slightly, but that's now kind of slipped back to what it used to be in the past. And you have similar experiences in various other states where particularly the governments are running the retail, consumer-facing retail. And that has been our ISWAI's and the industry's biggest pain point. The government in consumer-facing retail has not been successful at all. Whether you take the airlines, you take the ITDC, you take things like the phone service, whatever it is, the government has not been able to manage the consumer's aspirations and expectations. And therefore, over a period of time, people have shifted to other options, like in the phone service. I mean, how many people go to BSNL anymore? You're all into Airtel and Vodafone and things like that. So that has been our biggest experience. Our advocacy with with states has been to say that, the government really has no business to be in consumer-facing retail. As long as you are there in terms of maybe a wholesale channel, maybe you're there in terms of regulation, which is fair, considering the category of products that you're talking about, but at least consumer-facing, service-oriented retail, there is, the government leaves a lot to be desired. And that is the advocacy that we are doing. The other part of it is that you have carve-outs that happen in the retail. Even of this 85,000, etc., you have outlets which can sell only beer or wine, beer and wine. You have outlets that can sell only spirits. You have outlets that can sell only country liquor. Now, the attempt is also to, yes, increasing the number of outlets is bad optics as far as the politician is concerned, and hence there is a bit of resistance to that happening. The attempt is to try and do that smartly, like Madhya Pradesh has done, for example, to make composite outlets where one services everything, all streams of products. And so the total number doesn't change, but at least your availability footprint changes. So those are the kind of things that we are into advocacy for as far as the retail end is concerned.
Sure. Thanks, Suresh. I'll just set a context. FMCG industry in India is about 200 billion US per annum, and I'm talking about in MRP terms. And that 200 billion US goes through about 15 million outlets in the country. That's the context. I don't know about spirits. I know beer is about 36 billion US in India from an end consumer price point of view. I'm assuming spirits should be at least 4x, 5x of that. So put together, the Alcobev industry in consumer pricing terms should be about 150 billion US, and FMCG is about 200 billion. But look at the context, 200 billion going through about 15 million outlets, and about 100 plus billion going through only 85,000 outlets. So my next question, Suresh, or Suresh sir, is on that. In my opinion, the 85 can actually go 10x, but it's easier said than done. You spoke about advocacy, and you spoke about massive volumes and value flowing through a handful of outlets, which restricts consumer choice, which restricts the category as well, and hence the dollars coming in the form of duties. So is there any advocacy an ISWAI or an IBA is doing, bodies like yours, which to increase the number of outlets? Not all governments would be favorable, but some would be. I believe out of the 85, the maximum sitting in Maharashtra at about 19-20,000 plus, which probably would be the largest. And Telangana, which is probably one of the largest industries, hardly 3,500 outlets. It's a massive. And then water finds its own course. So I don't want to speak on this forum, but water finds its own course. So what would ISWAI do to take this 85 up to about 150, 200, and so on and so forth? I know that's 85 has remained 85 for a donkey's years.
Yeah. So the advocacy, I mean, it's a permanent fixture of the advocacy that we do every year as far as a part of the policy. The request for the softer things like increase in outlets, in drinking, legal drinking age, in terms of the number of days that the outlets are closed, things like that. Because our biggest concern is that the demand is not going anywhere. The demand is always there. And if the outlets are not able to service it, somehow that demand is being met. And these informal supply chains kind of get set up when there is unfulfilled demand. And when once that informal supply chain is set up, then it doesn't go away in a hurry. And then the dividing line between what is genuine, what is illicit, what is spurious starts to kind of vanish. And what happens as a result is that it is the fast-moving, well-known brands with reasonably large volumes that end up, with the dirty end of the stick, because it is those brands that move into that, territory fairly quickly. So this is a standard advocacy that we do. Madhya Pradesh, for example, the smart move to make it a composite outlet is a result of such advocacy. There are similar requests being made in other states. There are issues like Maharashtra. I think the number of outlets has not increased from the mid-1970s. And we've been told that as long as certain individuals continue to tread the political landscape, that is not going to change. So that's a challenge, and therefore you have to find smart solutions. So you've got maybe a beer and wine outlet. Look at spirits being put through that. It makes the retail license more justifiable. It makes the experience better for the retailer and for the consumer. You have a single window where you go to. And at the same time, your retail footprint increases without increasing the overall number of stores. So we will have to find smart ways around it. Not everybody is amenable to it because politics, optics, etc. play a part. But you cannot stop trying.
Sure. Vishal, I just want to check, how are we on time? It's 3:15. What time am I supposed to take a hard this thing? 10, take it 15, 3:30, okay. Suresh, one more last question, again, drawing parallels, what would have happened in 2030 for the consumer business happened in 2020 because of COVID, because people went online and started buying when things were not operational. This is another industry where, unfortunately, I can't buy my beer or alcohol. Maybe there in some states, I can't buy it online. When you have just 85,000 outlets, I think nothing better. I know there are restrictions in terms of legal drinking age, but today I can buy pharmacy online, upload my prescription, and 1 mg delivers it to my house. So why can't I upload my age certificate and I get my alcohol on house? So is there anything happening on the online e-com space where everything else is taken off? Today, 6 to 7% of FMCG sales happens online, and for nascent companies like mine, it's about 25% of our sales happening online. So why not Alcobev?
So COVID was a very genuine reason for us to push for online sales, because retail stores were either closed or functional on certain days of the week, odd days one side of the road, even days the other side of the road, etc., etc. So it was a timely thing for us to push for online sales. Since government revenues were in play, the governments were also willing to look at it. And that is how some states actually came up with online, allowing online sales. Unfortunately, the retail lobby in the country, with only 85,000 numbers actually existing, is so strong, because now, if you were to imagine a situation, say in Haryana or a state where somebody has taken a TECA for a certain geographical area. Now, if you were allowed to do an online sale from, say, theoretically Delhi, then where is the, what happens to the commitment that he has made for revenue from that Gurgaon territory, say? So that kind of gets into trouble, and which is the same reason why you have certain territories where you have MSP and not MRP. So those kind of issues come into play. In fact, our recommendation has been, allow for the retailer to do kind of a door delivery. Because very often these holes in the wall kind of retail stores are not the best experience for individuals, including for women, etc. And therefore, if you are able to ensure that somebody can dial up a retail store and say, please arrange to have this delivered, he shouldn't be susceptible to issues like the cop or the excise official catching hold of him and saying, why are you carrying 6 bottles? You're not supposed to have more than 2 bottles in your possession. Or something like that. I'm just using figures off the top of my head. So there are states who agree that we're willing to kind of avoid these kind of measures to say that yes, as long as the retailer is delivering it and he's got proof that he is carrying it as part of a sale and a convenience arrangement, we will not get involved and dole out harsh punishment. But not everybody has done that. The bogey that was also raised was that if this is the case, then probably an Amazon or one of these e-commerce giants could get in and do retail business. In which case, you can't have, while you can have a product from your stable which can be sold out of, say, Thane across the country, but an alcohol, you would have to have 30 different labels registered and stocked. And then there is, an amount involved in terms of interstate movement. So those kind of things come into play.
Got it. It's still such a pity that it's an industry that can grow, it can double or quadruple if things are eased up. And, there are best practices in some states which can be emulated easily by the other states. And irony is that those states are ruled by sometimes the same political party, but still, unfortunately, the best practices don't travel from state to state. Having said that, it was really insightful, Suresh. Maninder, there is this saying called the big fat Indian wedding. I don't know. And especially it gets fatter when it comes up north here. And I have a terrible problem coming from the Delhi airport to my house in Gurgaon because it's chock-a-block nowadays because of the wedding season. So as a cohort, it is a very interesting cohort where there are some typical Indian weddings where you don't serve alcohol and non-veg. And there are some Indian weddings which are now very fancy destination weddings and so on and so forth, where you the who's who, and in fact the Prime Minister had to say that, like Make in India, wed in India. So having said that, how important is this cohort or segment from an Alcobev industry? And what could industry players do to tap into this particular segment? If you could just throw some numbers, etc., that would be interesting. And how, let's say, a company which is into Alcobev tap this particular segment?
You have actually pointed the right thing, which I want to highlight. I got the opportunity today, and I would address this thing to the alcohol beverage leaders, that wedding segment is a big consumer segment. It is not only about the bulk buyers, they are the ones who are creating influence on others too. So Indian weddings, we have seen a transformation of Indian weddings. We are into this business since 18 years. And we have catered to somewhere around 300,000 families, wedding families so far. India is a market where 10 million weddings happens a year. And if I look at into 2016, when the year when demonetization hit, we have seen the transformation in this industry. After demonetization, GST was introduced, trade was troubled again. Then, interesting thing is COVID. COVID has actually changed the shape of Indian weddings. It used to be big fat weddings. I've seen the emergence of big fat Punjabi wedding to big fat Indian weddings. Now the weddings have gone intimate, up to 600 odd people. But interesting part to see is the expenditure, the spend on the weddings. It has increased over the weddings which used to be of 2,000 people. It's all about experience nowadays. Of lately, I've been to a wedding in Delhi itself. And in that wedding, again, like a very fancy kind of a setup was there. Food was paired with the different whiskeys from that region. I get into a Japanese counter where I get to see hibiki, zamazaki, and all these kinds of things paired with the Japanese food. It was a very interesting revelation for me. Wow, what kind of an experiential audience we are getting into. Indian wedding market is booming, and similarly, when it comes to the experience, of course, everybody is getting into more of an experiential activities in their wedding. And when it comes to alcohol, I'm sure the trade must, I may not be having those numbers with me, but I am sure you must have witnessed that kind of the fancy requirements of coming from the wedding market. I have seen that of lately, means a couple of years ago, Black Label used to be the biggest thing on Indian wedding market. But now you see spirits above 18 years age, then Macallans are also being served over there. So when it comes to wedding, there is like, it is just like a modern days festivities, I would say that. We do not celebrate festivals the way we celebrate Indian weddings. So of course, consumer perspective, that experiential market is increasing, and unfortunately, I didn't see the leaders, they are penetrating into that market in a specific manner. I would say that in the coming years, you would see the specific demand coming from wedding side to have a specialized mixologist, those who can create better experiences in their weddings. So this is a kind of market which is changing, evolving, growing. Destination wedding is becoming a culture now. And this market is very rapidly growing.
So is there a challenge in getting licensed to serve alcohol in weddings? If so, what are the options that people...
See, this is a day license which you get, serving license, you need to have it only. That's what the basic requirement is. You don't need to have a kind of a selling license over there. Serving license, you get a day license every day. It's very easy to have.
Got it. Thanks, Maninder. So I've saved the best for the last, Vishal. Vishal is, I would say, a fairly budding entrepreneur from a very nice part of the country, which is the northeastern states. And I don't know how many of you have, I just Googled it before coming in. You know, there's this place called The Warehouse. It's supposed to be a very fancy, I have not, uber fancy off-trade outlet in close to Guwahati. And Vishal is the founder for that. So Vishal, firstly, what made you set such fancy outlets in places? I mean, I'm not saying Nisa is bad, it's northeastern states is great, but in a place like that where you've invested a huge amount of money, what was the inspiration and how's been the experience of setting such fancy place like the whiskey company and the warehouse in northeastern states?
Good afternoon, everybody. See, one thing, setting up an outlet like that anywhere in India would not have been noticed. But setting up an outlet like that in somewhere in Northeast is a conversation starter even here in Delhi, right? So that itself says, right, you know, where and how Northeast is being seen. One thing I'll tell you, which will surprise everybody here, is the purchasing power that Northeast has. 70% of us don't qualify for income tax, not because we are under the underpriced bracket, but because we don't have income tax on us. So for me, my 1 rupee is 1 rupee. For you, your 1 rupee is 70 paisa. Spend power is high. There is immense amount of capital because of the fact that also a lot of money comes into Northeast for development purposes, right? The industries which are there are all industries which are locally owned because not a lot of entrepreneurs have come from outside and set up shop. So अगर आपके नीचे यहाँ सोना मिले गवर्नमेंट का है, हमारे यहाँ मिले तो हमारा है. So you have to understand from that perspective, one. ठीक है. Second, why Northeast? As you started the conversation today, I remember you mentioning that your wife can go out to an outlet in Gurgaon here and buy alcohol, which is not might be possible somewhere else, right? So Northeast, the society is more female dominated, right? If you see culture wise, we have the highest literacy in India percentage. Also the female literacy is also the highest. But there is another survey which has also been done in Northeast. We also have the highest percentage of female drinkers in India, right? As a percentage of drinking, they are the highest, right? Now if you look at the perspective how an entrepreneur is looking at solving a problem, my city has 20 million people, right? I see, 2 million people. I see that half of them are women, maybe a little more, right? And half of them are men. So before I ventured, I also had these standard cage outlets formats that they are called, right? And I always used to notice, madam used to come with the driver, and the driver used to be in the car, madam used to be in the car and used to send the driver. And said कि एक वाइन ला देना, वहाँ जाके ये जो भी वाइन का बॉटल था वो पैक करके दे दिया, मैडम को दे दिया और ठीक है. There is no brand opportunity, there is no brand selection, right? So if I had 300 licenses in my city, those 300 licenses were serving basically 50% of the population. Right? So we said, why not create an experience for the half of the population which does not exist? First to start with, that was the first thought, fully commercial. But while we ventured into that thought, right, and the outlet got created and everything, that experience we saw that people have when it comes to buying alcohol was a very personal experience. I saw eventually families coming in with children, a dog coming to a wine shop, picking up alcohol on a daily basis. I saw a father and a daughter coming in, father speaking proudly, showing his daughter that this is the scotches he enjoys, he wants to pick up. I also saw on an occasion a 70-year-old gentleman and his wife. They both came, explored up and down, bought some of the alcohol they wanted, and then they came to me and they said, we want to give you our blessing that you finally open something like this where someone of my age also can come, spend some time, not be haggled and pick up. Alcohol sells. Alcohol makes money for everybody who's in the industry, right? Sometimes you have to also do things not just out of a commercial angle for it. Sometimes you have to also do things to take the trade forward. In my part of the country, where the options are limited, because if you see a new company coming in, the first place they would want to set up shop maybe would be a duty-free outlet. They'll open a fancy outlet, fancy store, invest there. They'll open one in Gurgaon. By the time it trickles down to Calcutta, and then comes the chicken's neck. So basically it's like a filter. उसके बाद कुछ आता ही नहीं हमारे पास. सब कुछ खत्म हो जाता है. So we then had to go educate the trade that running an outlet like this requires high capex. Just because you are running a 500 square feet outlet and let's say you're doing a 1x sale, if you run a 35,000 square feet outlet does not mean you sales run into 35x, right? But your overall costing for everything goes up. Then comes the support of the industry, right? So we've been lucky enough in our part of the region that because there were few people who were trying to do this, the industry reached out. So that inspired me to open another outlet, which was the warehouse. So the first outlet wasn't the warehouse. It was an outlet called the Whiskey Company. It's there in Guwahati. So that is, I think, 10,500 square feet. The next one we opened was a 35,000 square feet outlet. So idea was, behind both the outlets was the same thing. It is two different states. So one is Assam, other is Meghalaya. It's not the same state in which both the outlets are. Then we also had challenges on brands not being available. You are saying we have 240 single malls, I think something you said. Sir, hamare yahan, when I got into the trade, there were 75 brands. And I come from a pharma background. And when I entered the trade, the first thing I was told, कि बहुत सारे brands हो गए यार, इतना कैसे संभाले? And in my pharma business, at any point of time, I'm handling close to 3,000 to 4,000 SKUs. I am like, 75 brand कौन से बहुत हो गए? When you open a 200, 300 square feet outlet, it is good enough to put. But when you open a 10,000 square feet outlet, there is no brands. Now we had to again go fix the problem. I had to get into an import business just because I can bring in the brands to fulfill my store requirements, right? So constant investment into the trade is required, and we invite people to come and look at Northeast in a very different light. Idea for even coming today and participating when this invitation was so that people understand that the best experiences that you guys speak about is not only limited to the tier A cities. You come and ask me, you say which is the store with the best experience to buy in India, I would say my outlet. You have a WSET level 4 sommelier serving wine. Yes. We have an in-house training program. Most of the people who are on the floor are either a WSET 2 or a WSET 1. You have events which are curated and organized regularly with different on-trade partners across the city for exploring the new brands that we come out with. Right? We did not have the options for a tasting license, which is happening right now in most of the metros. So we worked our way around it. We started hosting our sponsored event at various on-trade outlets wherever we could, try to just showcase the new brands that are in town. Right. So that has been a challenge, sir.
Super. We are done. I think we're running late. So thank you so much. It was lovely listening to all of you and learned a lot. So thank you. I won't sum up. It was fantastic having all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for so wonderfully, beautifully deliberating upon the retail experience in India. I request all of you to please step forward for a group picture. I request Mr. Bishan Kumar to please join the picture. We're so sincerely grateful to all of you for your time, for your expertise and warmth that you brought to the stage. Thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, we'd also like to take this opportunity to thank our associates and partners. We'd like to thank our presenting partner, Pernod Ricard India. We'd also like to thank our associate sponsors, Spiritz and Guwahati Closures Group for their constant, unwavering support. I'd request all of you to please be seated, please settle down. And for those of you who've joined us late, I have something very special to share with all of you, that in a momentous recognition for her remarkable work and contribution to the Scotch whisky industry, Spiritz editor Mrs. Shalini Kumar was bestowed with the prestigious title of the Keeper of the Quish. She was internationally recognized by the society which takes care of the Scotch whisky industry, and in India, she is probably the only journalist to receive this prestigious accolade. This deserves a huge, huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. She was recognized by the Keepers of the Quish Society. And let's now move forward with the next ThinkPad session, which is the session number 4. And this next session would deliberate upon Alcobev industry, a growth engine. Ladies and gentlemen, I would now invite the moderator and the panelists on the stage, but the session would also touch upon things like the economic impact of the Alcobev industry, drink less, drink better, society's changing perspective, and unlocking the business growth. So I would now invite the moderator for the session on the stage. Let's start with Ms. Nita Kapur, CEO, International Wines and Spirits Association of India. Well, she has over 30 years of experience in varying leadership roles across corporate sectors. Her experiences covers FMCG, industry body, media and advertising. She's also been actively involved in the social sector since 2005. Welcome to the stage, ma'am. And I would now invite on the stage Mr. Jagbir Sidhu, Corporate Relations Director, Diageo India. His responsibilities include regulatory and trade matters related to alcohol policy, market access, corporate communications and reputation, and programs to address alcohol misuse, champion responsible consumption, and deliver social impact. To join them on the panel, I would now invite Professor Pushpesh Pant, academician and author. He's an academic, food critic, and a historian. He retired as a professor of international relations from Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. I would now invite on the stage Mr. Paranjoy Guha Thakurta, journalist, writer, and filmmaker. He is a writer, speaker, anchor, interviewer, teacher, and commentator in 3 languages: English, Bengali, and Hindi. His main areas of interest are the working of the political economy and the mass media in India and the world. I would now invite on stage Mr. B.V. Rao, Group Consulting Editor, Digital India Today. He's joining us shortly. He is one of the most reputed journalists of the country. He is the Group Consulting Editor, Digital India Today. He's a senior editor, commentator, news and communications professional, and he headed TV9 group of channels in the past. And last but not the least, to join us on the panel, I would now invite on stage Mr. Rajan Bahadur, CEO of the Tourism and Hospitality Skill Council. He has over 35 years of experience in board and management experience and strong leadership skill in social sector, hospitality, financial services and travel, and consumer products. Ladies and gentlemen, this completes our panel. So Mr. Rao would be joining us shortly. Okay. So Mr. Rao is here. Let's now give a huge round of applause. This is a full house, so we can do a lot better with our applause. People sitting here, people sitting this side. Come on. Let's hear it for the panel. And I would now hand it over to the moderator.
Thank you so much. A very quick word of introduction about International Spirits and Wines Association. We were founded in 2004, and we are founded by the international majors in the country who have invested considerably over the couple of decades here. So most of our members, all our members have commercial operations in India, and we have members Diageo, Pernod, Beam Suntory, Bacardi, William Grant and Sons. We have Campari Group, we have Mo Hennessy. So we look after the regulatory affairs for the entire spirits and wines industry other than beer. And I am particularly happy to have a panel that essentially, one that covers the upstream of the industry to our sector, i.e. the hospitality and the tourism. And the second is the media, which is essentially almost like will help me understand the paradigm shift that has taken place towards the sector. And it is a pleasure to have Jagbir on the panel. Also, Jagbir is a considerable experience of the Alcobev industry. I think most of you would be familiar with Jagbir. Our one panel member from Pernod is not here, but that's on account of personal reasons. So without much ado, I'm going to delve right into the economic value of the industry. Somebody quoted the industry figure at about 150 billion. That is basis the average MRP that we are talking about. But I'm just giving a number which is based on volumes. The industry is currently about 55 billion, projected to grow to about 64 billion in the next 5 years. Number one. Number two is the industry contributes to approximately 2% of the gross domestic product of the country. Number three, the industry employs over 80 lakh people, and primarily in the fields of agriculture, retail, hospitality, travel and tourism. So a significant employment generator for the country. Number four, the industry in fact contributes to roughly about 30% of a share of wallet of a traveler, be it domestic and or international, and about 15% to the average bill of the food and beverage industry. For those who are looking for further detailed highlights of the value of the Indian Alcobev industry, feel free to reach out to Ram sitting at the back and Chandri and Parvinder sitting in the front for a hard copy or a soft copy of the report. So I'm going to first just kind of get my mind map going. I have media and I have hospitality, so maybe I'll just very quickly start. I know Jagbir has a clock running, so I will make sure that he leaves at about 4:30, 4:20, around that time. So my first question really is to, and this could be taken up by the hospitality sector, and a question to you. Like I said, a very important sector for the industry and very important sector for the country, given the way that, we are seeing the tourism sector grow, and the emphasis to the tourism sector given in the budget last year. Having said that, I really wanted to understand from a skill perspective is what are the changes that you are seeing from your perspective as far as pre and post-COVID is concerned? And then, how does the Alcobev industry play a role in this now?
Thank you, Nita, and delighted to be here. Interesting, because I've been trying to sort of put my mind around this pre-COVID, during COVID, post-COVID. And coming from the hospitality and the skilling background, I can say safely that pre-COVID, the hospitality industry was having a great run. ARRs, RevPARs, occupancies, everything was good. Then came COVID. And nearly for 2 years, in March 2020, And nobody expected COVID to last so long. The whole world came to a standstill. There were no flights, there was no movement, everything was shut down. During that time, and of course, fortunately, post-COVID, the industry, the hospitality industry, it was perhaps the worst to get hit and last to sort of start recovering. Having said that, today we are seeing not just green shoots, but, it's flourishing today. I think during COVID, a couple of learnings were that, the old saying of survival of the fittest went out of the window. It was survival of the quickest. Whoever adapted, changed, was able to survive. You had ITC and Moria doing home delivery. You had neighborhood laundries being serviced. Because those machines had to run, people had to be kept occupied. However, having said that, with disruption, there is always opportunity. And I think that's what we are seeing. Call it revenge travel, call it, huge amount of domestic traveling. Skies are opening up, people have begun to travel. MICE is becoming a big thing now, all from a hospitality part. To link it to all of this is your F&B and things like that. And I think from that point of view, so just to give you a little bit of a background, at Tourism and Hospitality Skill Council, we come under the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. We run close to 600 skilling centers across the country. Plus we have about 80 plus colleges where we, with industry partners, about 3,000 industry partners of ours, we actually make qualifications, courses, which we then get certified by the government and run them in these institutes to train youth. So we mobilize youth for short-term training, 3 months to 9 months, and then make sure there's employment. One of the, apart from cookery and housekeeping and front office and all, is barman. And apart from hospitality, we also service cruise liners, facility management, quick service restaurants, etc. So I think all this knits back to the huge opportunity which is coming up. There's a big gap between demand and supply. As we talk today, we have begun to conduct a all India demand supply skill gap analysis to see which are the jobs which are going to be prevalent in the next 3 years. Because things have changed, jobs have changed, the whole concept has changed, they're multitasking today. So I'm going to rest my case here, but there is huge opportunity, there is huge demand, and supply is very short of the expectation at this point of time.
Right, so if I forget, remind me to touch on tourism later and the advantages and the economic opportunities for tourism, which would be, an interesting conversation to have. And perhaps maybe you could throw light on what are the economic opportunities?
I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm neither tourism nor hospitality nor industry. I like my alcohol. That's number one.
Yeah.
And I think nobody is addressing the elephant in the room is the hypocrisy of the government. Everybody is saying, I'm getting almost tipsy, if not dizzy. I thought I would get a high, but it's getting almost tipsy. Billions of this, millions of that, hundreds and thousands of employment. And what the government earns out of excise is, in the federal system, a very large chunk of what the state governments get. Somebody in an earlier panel said that the government may be of the same ruling party in 2 states, but they have different excise policies. And what we have been going through in 2 neighboring states of Delhi and Haryana, and especially in Delhi, is a major political scandal. So what happens to excise policy is a cause of governments to rise and fall. And I'm one of the older people in the room, I think, if not the oldest fossil. I recall Morarji Desai in Bombay, which was the beginning of prohibition, if memory serves me right, and beginning also of organized crime. And then Morarji Desai ended up as the Prime Minister of this country, much to the regret of people like me who were fond of their drinks. And I see in Uttarakhand there was total prohibition. And I think the case is still in the Supreme Court. Reporter is about, I think, Dabar and the Amrit Sanjeevani Sura versus the government of Uttar Pradesh, then it was Uttar Pradesh. And regular daru stopped coming, but you had these interesting shops, great retail outlets, which give you a beautiful eye candy of biotonic wine, Amrit Sanjeevani Sura, Darimashtak, Pudin Hara, Tinchi, and so on. So I think the problem is that all these opportunities, which we are talking about, can be laid to waste by government, which has interesting thing that take another case. In today's newspaper, one Mr. Sahu has been raided and again billions and zillions of cash has been, and the party has distanced itself. Congress party, that we have nothing to do with Mr. Sahu's business. He was a liquor baron in Orissa and Jharkhand. So I think we have a problem. All of us like to drink, I presume. At least those of us present in this room which have industries. And unfortunately, it is the Macbeth sporter scene. You know, alcohol has this tendency to arouse the desire but take away the performance. So what happens is that you have this problem that nobody is going to say that we love alcohol. I got some talking points for this session, which I did a quick, it'll just take a minute. I mean, when I get a mic, the old teacher ran away. No, I think the problem is this, is a Mona Darling, and I checked it out. Does anybody remember Mona Darling image? Does anybody remember the villain was Ajit, who also put heroes in liquid oxygen, na wo jeene dega, na marne dega? Who's bothered about those films and Ajit Singh? I mean, you go to Generation G, Generation X, the millennials, they love their alcohol. The alcohol is not supposed to be taboo. But we have a problem that a person can in this country vote at the age of 18, marry at the age of 21, but not buy alcohol till, he is getting slightly grey.
So I think there is, I could join in this conversation and, we can kind of, point fingers at the stakeholders, which is primarily the state. But having said that...
In my case, it's the government. I'm pointing my fingers at the government.
State. I'm just using the term state to kind of use it as a reference to the government. But I think to very progressive states, there are equally amount of progressive states that are working with the industry as they realize that the industry's contribution to its exchequer indexed to an MRP is about 40%. So they understand the importance of the industry. Now the challenge really is in terms of how do you bring in responsible consumption, moderation of consumption, awareness of alcohol is alcohol, awareness that the responsibility of consumption lies at both ends, the suppliers as well as the end user. Now that is a separate conversation and I'm happy to engage with it. But it is very easy to pick up the elephant in the room and keep whipping. But you've got to understand that the elephant in the room, in this case, the state has its own responsibilities and restrictions. And if the industry needs to move forward, which the industry will move forward, given the scale and the size of the industry, then it really needs to get into a very, very continued, matured conversation with the state. But I'm going to come back to you before
just give me 5 seconds. You
can
don't whip an elephant.
Sorry?
You don't whip an elephant under any circumstance.
That's right. Or you don't wear a,
you can
patch and kind of, figure out your elephant.
Parts of the elephant, but the elephant can misbehave. Can be a rogue elephant.
I think it's both. I think it's all players. So we'll come back to that conversation because, it always kind of encourages a lot of heated discussion on this. But I think let me give opportunity to the other panel members and I'll just kind of reach out to Jagbir, because being in the industry and having seen a lot of perspectives and what is really bothering the industry, and I'm sure most of the players here and supply great brands in this room, are really going to be, what we are concerned about really is inflation. It's not a very glamorous subject, but I did want Jagbir to speak about inflation and how are we ready to tackle that, and particularly from a Diageo's perspective, how is Diageo addressing the subject of inflation and the ENA point here?
So Nita, I thought I had come for a panel discussion. This seems to be my review meeting.
Sorry.
You're absolutely, to be honest, there is no answer to your question. We've had the misfortune of having to withdraw from 4 states in the country because we were not given a price increase. And we could not afford to sell those brands at that price. You see the Excise Act in different states. Some of them are as old as 1915, 1918. Some of them are new. The states which have a clause which says that the Excise Commissioner shall fix the billing price, the ex-distillery price, now has put a lot of government officials in a fix as to when the audit later on, 5 years later, asks them on what basis did you fix the price. There is no logic that you can explain that why did I give somebody a 100 rupee price increase or a 200 rupees price increase. That has resulted in a situation where the excise commissioner, in his own wisdom, I'm not saying right or wrong, they say that you give us the lowest price in the country. So if you can sell X brand in Y state at rupees 700 a case, then you give it to me also at 700 rupees a case. Now the cost of selling in that state could be very different. Or maybe that state was, if I may loosely use the word, a rogue state and did not give the industry a price increase for 10 years. That means in the rest of the states also, I drop the price. And that's a vicious cycle. And it's not once, but we've had to do it quite a few times. Other companies also have been out of the market for this reason. And like it was being discussed in the previous session, like Suresh very rightly mentioned, that leads to bootlegging, that leads to smuggling. Now, we were out of a neighboring state of Haryana for 1 year. We've got the price increase now, but the whole industry is crashed, not only for us, because we had the biggest brands in the BIO space, but for the entire industry, because there's a new channel of bootleggers that has started flowing in from Haryana into that state. And the industry size of imported brands, which was about 20 to 25,000 cases a month, is now at 7 to 8,000 cases. It's not that suddenly people have stopped drinking in that state. It's that the stock started from here, and now there's no way to stop it, even if the brand is available in that shop. And this obviously leads to then encouraging illicit, because if somebody is not buying from an authorized retail, he doesn't know what he's buying, and when somebody is selling it under the garb of darkness or under the cover of darkness, out of 12 bottles, 3 or 4, counterfeit also gets pushed.
Do you think it is the right time or the time for industry to ask for an inflation index? Which is transparent above the board?
Yes. I think you're absolutely right, Nita, the answer. I think at this forum I would urge maybe the Ministry of Food Processing, which is the governing nodal agency for Alcobev in India, or the Niti Aayog to come out with an inflation-based formula, right? If people are not very keen on deciding on an arbitrary price increase for the industry, I think there should be a formula based, maybe the Niti Aayog can publish every 2 years saying that, this is the inflation on Alcobev, and it should happen across the board. But one of the biggest problems the Alcobev industry faces is that it's a purely state subject. The government of India has very little role to play in it, and obviously because they don't have a role to play in it directly, they don't interfere. It's a state subject. And when it becomes a state subject, then you're again stuck in the vicious cycle. I can assure you there are a lot of people from the industry over here. Everybody is facing this problem, be it a startup, new startups. A lot of young new startups that have started in some progressive state are unable to move to different states across the country because of this problem. So I think it's a very serious issue, and I'm glad you've raised it here.
Right. And I'll just come back to you in a bit. So the question to my friends from the media and my panel members from the media is, from the time, I think, I can safely say from my generation onwards, is essentially, we're talking about the 90s, which is what my generation has been, to now 2023. What are the changes that you have witnessed from an environment, from an external environment perspective towards the sector? And any one of you can kind of address that.
He's my senior. Venkat, please start. I'm aware that I'm addressing a gathering of people who are engaged in manufacturing and selling and distribution of alcohol. I don't know why Shri Bishan Kumar called me, because what I would say may be contrary to what others have to say. But I'm speaking straight from what she says, my perception. Before that, a disclaimer, a personal disclaimer. I'm a former smoker. now a virulently anti-smoker. I'm a drinker. I love my whiskey in the evening, but I have problems with those who binge on alcohol. Personal. Second point on which is a personal thing, my schoolmate was a gentleman who's acquired considerable notoriety. He's right now a fugitive from justice, living in London. His name is Vijay Mallya. We were in the same school, La Martiniere, for boys, Kolkata. And one of the things he mentioned, and this was sort of corroborated by the speakers here, is that to sell alcohol in India, you have to deal with as many states and union territories that are existing. As we're saying, it's not a subject of the union government. Therefore, each state has its own set of laws. Having said this, let me say something which I presume others have not said. I may be wrong, I've just walked in. It's a sinful industry like tobacco. It is considered across the world, and certainly in India, to be sinful within big inverted commas. Soon maybe ganja will get into this category. We know of a recent instance of a gentleman from the Punjab who has, according to him, growing 100 acres of land and growing marijuana for medical purposes, within quotes, and his association with the son of the Minister for Agriculture, Shri Narendra Singh Tomar. But let me be very clear. Alcohol, selling alcohol, is arguably one of the biggest, if not the biggest source of covert and overt earning of politicians across the country. It's the money bag. And you'll see how it can be exploited for political purposes. Right now, the Deputy Chief Minister of Delhi, Sri Manish Sisodia, he's in jail. Ostensibly because there was some illegal activity.
Yeah, but sir, I'll have to interrupt you. I'm so sorry, because that matter is sub judice, and I don't think it will call for a conversation on that.
I'm not saying anything that is sub judice. I'm stating facts.
Yeah, but that, I think...
May I just complete something? I'm not saying anything that could be construed to be sub judice.
Yeah, because that's not a part of my conversation.
No, I agree with you.
Feel free.
You asked my opinion of how things have changed.
I asked your opinion to a very specific question that said, has the perception about the industry changed over the decades?
So my answer would be yes.
I respect your point of sinful, and I would have said, fine, I respect that perception, and you've maintained that point of sinful.
My answer to your question is yes and no. So first let me tell you why it hasn't changed, and then I'll surely tell you why it's changed. Of course it's changed. So if you want the first part first, you don't see women buying alcohol. You know, I live in Gurgaon, and there is a particular store which claims it's the biggest alcohol store in this part of the world, in the National Capital Region. Whenever I've gone there to buy some alcohol, I've seen lots and lots of women, including people who are, that's something we never saw before. That's certainly new. It's like also women smoking in public, or women kissing in public, or women and men kissing in public. Again, these norms have certainly changed, and certainly in the urban areas. But let me tell you what hasn't changed. Why is Nitish Kumar popular despite having introduced prohibition in Bihar? People said, you're encouraging bootlegging. Why is a person from a now different party, Gujarat? It's been a prohibition state for donkey's years, for decades. I mean, if you look at all the alcohol that's consumed on the outskirts of the state, in Rajasthan and in the union territories, you would think that the people there are doing nothing but drinking all day. Because that is a very flourishing business.
Right. So I would, in fact, say let's stay with the change. I would, because I think I'm an extremely positive person, and I'm going to say, let me stay with the change that is essentially talking about progressiveness, inclusive, giving me safe outlets to kind of buy and experience my product. And, so I would stay in that area, and therefore my next, the reason I used those archetypes of Mona Darling or Ajit was because that was a reference to my generation. Today that has changed.
One last point before Venkat takes over.
Sure.
In cinema, the Central Board of Film Certification insists that if anybody lights a cigarette, you have a little disclaimer. While that person is smoking cigarettes, cigarette smoking is injurious to health. You also have the warnings on the packs. You don't have it for alcohol. Have you wondered why? I don't know.
I've not wondered. I'm aware of it. Why? Because I think that's exactly what we propagate. We propagate, which is essentially to say, drink less, drink better. In fact, for that matter, we are totally, as an industry, against binge drinking. So we are very, very conscious about the responsibility of moderation, the responsibility of drinking less and drinking better. Obviously, we are still not a majority voice. Inshallah, we will be. But the idea of the conversation is really to draw light on the change, because if we get stuck in the past, then the new thinking or the new responsibilities that the Gen Z and the millennials are bringing in will be thoroughly ignored by conversations that may distract the purpose of the panel.
You have your interest and your agenda. As a person who's part of the media, all I wanted to tell you also why things have not changed.
I respect that.
Yeah, like both the journalists began with personal clarification.
The end consumer. He wanted to be a consumer.
Mine is that I'm a teetotaler, right? But listening to all the troubles that the Alcobev industry is in, I almost feel guilty. I'm not participating. I'm not enhancing your business. Yeah. See, I've always had, as a journalist, you watch society, governments, and everything. So that's where I come from. Not an expert. I've always had a problem with the government being the controlling agency in this. Not for the reason that they are there, somebody has to control, somebody has to regulate. But the problem is, like, I remember, at least in Delhi, when I was in my youthful years, Paranjay, we had a story about how in Delhi at that time, I don't know, Bishan, tell me if it is true even now, the excise commissioner and the commissioner for prohibition are the same. Right?
Yeah.
So look at the dichotomy. Look at how conflicted that individual would be. Right? So he would be looking at this side of his office and saying, Bagas, band karo sale ko pee raha hai. Right? He will turn this side and say, Arey kab pilao bhai. Because he has his excess targets, right? So this contradiction, right? Why I mention this is, I think the industry should not worry about responsible drinking. We all have a certain responsibility to society, I understand. But he has his board meetings, he has his stakeholders. What is the business of any business? To grow it. So it should be the business of the business to grow it. It should be the government's business to ensure it is regulated. And all the education of how much you should drink, whether you should drink or not, when you should drink, the non-drinking drivers, and all that is about a societal, governmental, campaigns. The conscious, I don't think the industry should carry this guilt of somebody binging and either killing somebody on the street while driving or himself dying, right? I think the whole problem of the industry is that, one, the government is the governments, not the central government. Governments are the ones that are actually controlling this, like both Pushpesh ji and Paranjay pointed out, and that is the biggest problem. And the 350 crore, we are all staring at it. It tells us a story. It tells us a story of why all of you are so worried and why all of you are almost, I think, you operate with two hands tied behind your back, right? So I think it is just that if the industry should should have any relief at all, you should actually beat your head against the what I heard in the morning. 85,000 outlets for a country of 140 crore people are ridiculous, totally. Right?
I think my question is, have you seen a change in the external context? That would be nice to have. So I'll come back to your challenges.
Yeah, it will. It's happening because the thing is that what I was saying is that all these changes won't happen overnight, and they have to come bottom up. The government can beat its head up, I can beat my head against the wall, you can do it. We can all together hit our walls, your heads against that wall there, nothing will happen. But if the change comes from the bottom, and that is where I think I'm seeing a change. Like, my father was a drinker, my children are. Only I am the guy who doesn't contribute to your business. I see a change in the way my father's generation used to kind of have this huge thing about every evening or every week. They would be kind of really pining for that week to come, and they would slosh themselves. This generation doesn't. My children, they're not totally into it. They love their parties, they go to their parties, but they're not overawed by this. It is one of the things they do. I think that change is definitely happening. Also because people are able to buy more. And I think it is in your report I saw from 2000 to 2018, there's a 140% increase in alcohol consumption. That's not small.
Per capita consumption is still at about 5, and we are saying that even though, and we will continue to be lowest, I think in the next 2 to 3 years, it will touch about 8% max.
Exactly.
Right. So that is interesting.
That's happening. That definitely is happening.
Yeah. And the triggers for that, irrespective of, everybody pointing fingers at the state, I would say the trigger for that and the kudos must go to the industry. You have seen product innovations, phenomenal product innovations as far as this industry is concerned, despite somebody saying your hands are tied at the back. Number 2, you've seen the heralding of the retail revolution, irrespective of the fact that you've got 80,000 outlets, then it is essentially going to be about, the size of the outlets. Number 3, tourism, the influx of tourism that is taking place. Number 4 is your younger population, which is roughly about 54% of the total Indian population. And that's what's making me come back, and I'll touch base with you again, is to the topic of tourism. And I'm seeing globally, as we are engaging in many bilateral conversations with different countries, and we're coming across the way the various countries have built a tourism economy. And I think, it would be great if you could throw some light on that.
So, what we are actually talking about is responsible drinking.
Yeah.
Any product, why alcohol? I launched ITC into agri-businesses many, many moons ago. If you have excessive edible oil
or salt or sugar.
Or for whatever. So I think it's the stigma which has got attached to this. The government will continue to do what they're supposed to be doing. The private partners will continue to do what I think. And I'm not an expert on this, there are enough experts here, but I think we need to do more in terms of public-private partnership. We need to be looking, and I'm not saying it's not happening, but I think whether it is educating the masses on drinking, drinking. I was posted in Bombay. Bombay, you have to have a license to keep liquor at home, beyond the 4 bottle, whatever it is. And the form that you have to fill there, in Hindi it says, Sharabi ka naam, Sharabi ke baap ka naam.
It's Gujarat also.
Or Gujarat also.
Yeah.
Peene ki lat kab se lagi? I may be having one drink in the evening. So that's the point I'm making, that we need to educate the masses, everybody, all the stakeholders, to make sure. In terms of tourism and all, I think it plays a very important role from the perspective of responsible drinking, from the perspective of how we are educating people. I think when I talk about public-private partnership, I don't mean the companies who are dealing in alcohol alone, but including hospitality, where there is, events happening, where there are, educating the people, the masses. I can tell you, even in my own friend, and I'm no connoisseur of wine, for example, but 9 out of 10 people don't know what they're drinking in terms of wine. But they will take the glass, they will swirl it around and things like that. The point is, it's become more of a status symbol.
After the second drink in particular, they don't know whether you're still having that fancy single malt or the cheapest whiskey the bartender can give you.
Sure. But I think, and you rightly said in the beginning, if done properly, if created proper platform, it's a huge job creator, it's a huge foreign exchange earner, it's a huge contributor to GDP. And I think from that point of view, if done responsibility, it has huge opportunities, especially in a country like ours where the population is huge. The foreign tourist is huge. And I think I certainly see this as an opportunity rather than something which needs to be stepped away from. We need to take it head on. Yeah. We need to work with the government. We need to see how we can put in advocacy to make sure there is enough learning and education on this.
True, because this is the first time last year, in fact this year, 2023, that our nodal ministry, Ministry of Food Processing, has actually introduced Alcobev in the World Food event. So if you visited the World Food event that took place in December Fest week, there was an absolutely demarcated area with all the age gates that were there, and there were companies that could present, their products. Once again, a similar event is taking place tomorrow, which is to do with the World Investment Forum that, so I am seeing change hai. I'm optimistic, so that will happen. But I think I interrupted you, both of you, earlier.
I actually had a question also for you.
Hanji, bataiye. Puchiye.
I know you're the one who's doing the question.
No, feel free.
Once in a while we can reverse our roles. I don't know, has the incidence of people dying on account of consumption of illegal alcohol,
so I think,
has it come down? Has it come down or not? I don't know.
I'll tell you, it's sporadic. I think you are painting the entire industry in one brush. I'll tell you why. A lot of this reporting incidents that are taking place are essentially taking place on account of illicit liquor, is what we call hooch. The bulk of the industry that is present here is what we call the organized industry. So these are the branded industries with manufacturing facilities, distilleries, all the QCs in place. And they are the ones that will have the excise exchequer really looking at every route from the factory gates to the market. So this is an organized industry. So to talk about hooch-related illicit is essentially a disfavor to the people here. So ये नहीं है कि कम है या ज़्यादा है, क्योंकि मुझे पता नहीं है. Country liquor, cheap liquor, unaccounted for liquor जो है, वो कितनी बन रही है, कहाँ बन रही है, कैसे बन रही है, मुझे नहीं पता. But to what Jagbir was alluding was really a counterfeit, जहाँ पे आप हमारी ही बोतलें रद्दी से खरीद रहे हो. हमारी ही बोतलें रद्दी से खरीदते हो, उसी में पता नहीं क्या डाल के आप वापस आ जाते हो. वही सुरेश भी पिछली इसमें कह रहे थे कि ये तो सरासर is now the larger problem that the country is facing really is to do with country liquor, illicit and hooch. अब उसके numbers मेरे पास नहीं है. मैं ये कह सकती हूँ कि जितनी साइज हमारी organized industry की है, हम roughly कहते हैं 365 million cases, give or take, plus or minus 10. The size of the country unaccounted liquor in this is almost similar, if not more.
So it's half-half, you're saying?
I think, yes, that is our best guess. And he's an industry veteran here. अब उसका कोई लिखा पढ़ा नहीं है. तो हम तो सिर्फ अपनी बात कर सकते हैं. जब आप sin कहते हैं, तो आपके दिमाग में है हूच, और हम हैं सिंगल मॉल्ट, IMFL, वोडका और ये बनाने वाले. हमारे यहाँ इनोवेशंस हैं, स्टार्टअप्स हैं, यहाँ पे RTDs बनाती हैं, वाइन बनाती हैं, ये चीज़ें बना रही हैं. तो हम तो यही कह रहे हैं कि भाई कि आप बात किसकी कर रहे हैं और हम हैं कौन. तो यही पॉइंट में क्लैरिफाई करना चाहती थी कि whenever we are talking sin, we are talking about a sector of the industry which is comprehensively unaccounted for. This is the industry in this room that is essentially pushing the envelope for change, for responsibility, for employment, for an inflation index, for a consumer education कि भाई आप तमीज से पिएंगे तो हमारी इज्जत बचेगी, आप बदतमीजी सड़क पे करेंगे तो हमारी इज्जत खराब हो रही है. So as a supplier and as an end consumer, you go hand in hand. जितनी हमारी जिम्मेदारी है उतनी आपकी भी है. That is the point of saying.
बहुत बेहतर से सरल भाषा में सबको समझाया और क्या कौन जिम्मेदार है. मगर popular perception.
I know.
That's the only point I was saying.
Yes.
What is the popular perception? That India consumes more black label than is ever manufactured.
वो तो गए जमाने उसके.
वो चला गया.
अब ये तो it's a total.
I'm saying it's perception, speculation.
Yes. Yes. हाँ जी, आप भी पूछिए.
नहीं, मुझे पूछने का कोई शौक नहीं है.
अच्छा.
मैं तो वो सुन के हाई हो गया मुझे. मैं आपसे अर्ज कर रहा था. I will take on what Paranjay said about sin. सिर्फ शराब ही sin नहीं है. The Supreme Court has been constrained to observe against the Calcutta High Court कि आप ये राय बच्चों को मत दीजिए कि sinful desires लड़कियों के मन में नहीं होनी चाहिए. So we are a nation of sinners and hypocrites. हमारे लिए sex sin है. I mean, I had a friend who used, on his honeymoon, he said, I shut the door, I switched off the light, I shut my eyes and then did what is supposed to be done on the Suhag Raat. तो हम लोग उस के लोग हैं, हमारे लिए हर चीज sinful है. जहाँ तक responsibility का सवाल है, the demographic snapshot is concerned, I'm very curious. Everybody says कि more than half of this 1.4 billion is younger. How many of them are between 0 and 16? And how, no, let me finish please, for once. I think this game of demographics is very odd. There is an issue of peer group pressure. I'm very fond of Karan Thapar. I see his incisive interview. Glenn Fidget advertises that. डब्बे में कुछ लिखा हो ना लिखा हो, alcohol cannot be directly advertised. But surrogate advertising from cricket, which is controlled by politicians of great eminence of all parties, can have display very nicely. My problem is that when we talk in terms of tourism promoting, there will be tourists who will go to Malana State for good ganja. There would be people who would go to, there is this film called Kuhasa, which talks of expats from London coming for Chitta in Punjab. I mean, I don't think that we are, when we are talking of people behaving responsibly, I think the whole idea is that the parents at home should also be able to convince the younger people on the worth threshold of drinking. It is better than you are having rave party drugs, better than bith, better than chitta, better than crack or smack or whatever, or even ganja, good old ganja as an agricultural medicinal crop. So I think, this is something which we have to worry about. I think more people are killed in India by truck drivers and cab drivers with unlicensed things. So I am supposed to take an informed risk. I shouldn't, I mean, this young kid who died at the age of 14 trying to become a Formula 1 driver, and the parents were, heartbroken. But the point is, when you take to horse racing, you take to mountain climbing, you take to high altitude trekking, they are informed risks, but of a different variety. He talked of tobacco. I think he was given for smoking. So did I long years ago. But I enjoy drinking with my son and my granddaughters. It's illegal. One of my granddaughters is underage. So what we do is we say, look, darling, you can have a Brisa, but she's not happy enough with Brisa. She, in her peer group company, has had something stronger. So we said, it's all right. You have light beer, is all right. You have wine, you may not know, you might be drinking sirka, but as long as जो आपने तमीज वर्ड इस्तेमाल किया, आप खाने पीने का तमीज सीख लीजिए, उतना बहुत.
बस उतना ही है.
उतना अगर करेंगे, वो काम घर पे होगा. हम ये इंडस्ट्री पे रिस्पांसिबिलिटी न रखें.
Yeah. Yes, please.
I just want to say that again. I'm a non-alcoholic, right? Teetotaler who has watched my father's generation and my children. My father's generation used to crave for it, and there was a hint of negativity to it. They would do it. The children cannot come, they cannot
Ladies
see.
In one room,
they'll do in their
room.
room.
Okay, I'm aware of that.
There was some, what you call, stigma attached to that. They used to crave for it, but there is a stigma attached to it. So the children were not even allowed to see, look in, come anywhere near. For my children, it's normal. It's okay to go to a party, it's okay to go have a beer or whatever they want, and they come back. So what liquor industry and our society needs is normalizing drinking of liquor. And that is happening. That is happening. Don't wait for it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what we,
Please do not hope for anything from the government and do not carry the guilt of society on your shoulders. That's
absolutely. I think normalizing is what we are pursuing as an industry. So next time I'm going to tell Bishanji that there must be a young generation and this generation, and let us then see what is the pitch between the two.
Yeah,
so,
Hanji. 30 seconds.
Yes.
This is so interesting, we can carry on and on. But the fact of the matter is a lot to do with culture. In Europe, where kids are growing up, having a glass of wine with their parents, with their grandparents, it's not unique. And there's no hide and seek about it. Here, people start craving for it a lot more because it's supposed to be tabooed. It's supposed to be not available or out of bounds. And so, uska fun ek dusra hota, that becomes into a habit. And then it goes out of control. So I think culturally also we are changing. People are traveling, people are seeing.
I think COVID was the biggest trigger when in-home consumption went up. So, sir, now I'm going to close, but at the close of the session, I would honestly tell the industry, kudos for all your efforts, kudos for the opportunities that you look at, and kudos for sustaining in this industry irrespective of the challenge. So thank you for being a part of this industry, and thank you so much for being a frank and forthright panel. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would request all of you to please step forward for a group picture. I'd request Mr. Bishan Kumar to please join in. It indeed was a very, very interesting, engaging and exciting discussion. I'm sure there's so much to learn, so much to imbibe for all the relevant stakeholders present out here. I'd request all of you for a group picture. Thank you so much. I would request all of you to please be seated as we now move ahead to the last and final session in this 10th edition of the Spiritz Conclave. We are all set for the 5th and the last ThinkPad session of the day. I'd request all of you to please be seated. Okay. Well, it is said that future starts today, not tomorrow. So yes, we're going to talk about the future in this panel discussion. The topic for the next panel discussion is categories of the future and trends. And I would now invite on the stage the panelists for this session along with the moderator. Can I now have on stage Mr. Sumit Mandala, CEO Marketing VBev. Serving as the CEO, VBev and AWS Global, he has been a versatile business leader with a proven record of accomplishment in FMCG, hospitality and beverage industry. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Sumit Mandala, he'll be joining us very shortly. And I would now invite on the panel Dr. Yogini Buddhakar, Sirana Meads. Well, with her partner, Dr. Ashwini Deorah, Dr. Yogini co-founded Sirana Meads in 2016. Their meads were launched in November 2019 and are available in 5 markets in Mumbai, Navi Mumbai, Thane, Pune and Nashik. Please welcome her with a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Come on, let's give her an applause. Let's be very generous with our applause. I would now invite on the panel Mr. Youngdoop Lama, celebrity mixologist and co-founder, Thirsty 3 Hospitality. He's a bar owner, entrepreneur, and author. He has an illustrious career spanning with over 25 years. Please welcome him with a huge round of applause. Up next on the panel, I would now invite Ms. Suramya Kedia, Vice President, Brand and Strategic Growth. Well, she is the founder of the recently launched RTD brand Rascal as the part of her family's business, Great Galleon Ventures Limited. Please welcome her with a huge round of applause. And last but not the least, let's welcome Mr. Anand Virmani, co-founder now Spiritz. He is the first craft gin distiller in India. Previously, he's worked with William Grant & Sons and Remy Contreras in India and spent some time in between the vineyards of Burgundy while pursuing a formal education in wine. Let's welcome him with an applause. I would once again like to welcome on the stage the moderator for this session, Mr. Sumit Mandala, CEO, Marketing, WeBev. Ladies and gentlemen, this completes the entire panel. This is the last and final panel discussion for the day. I'm sure a very, very high energy and engaging one. So first, let's give them a huge round of applause. Everybody. So ladies and gentlemen, this completes our panel and it is now over to the moderator of this session, Mr. Sumit Mandala, CEO, WeBev.
Well, thank you so much for the introduction. I think on behalf of everyone present here, I would like to thank Spiritz for giving us this platform, which is truly fantastic. I just heard some of the panelists earlier. It was very enlightening, for sure. Yeah, so thank you so much for that. I would like to welcome all the panelists out here. Thank you for taking your time and being part of that. And to the wonderful audience that we have here. Yeah. So topic we have is categories of future. It's very interesting. I wish there was a single answer for that. But I think I'll come back to the point that we are in an industry which is very dynamic. It's also very diverse at the same time. Yeah. We have a lot of statutory hurdles at some point of time. There's a lot of diversity in terms of culture that we see across from one region to other, right? When we think of South India as a market, people perceive brandy is the first drink of choice. When we think of North as a market, we think whiskey and rum is the first preferred choice. But I think over a period of time, I've been part of this industry for about 30 odd years, both in hospitality as well as in beverage. What I've learned is there are different things happening at different time. Yeah, because of that diversity itself, you see that people are following different trends. Also, the disposable income at hand plays a very, very important role. So depending on how much can you spend, you're already looking at the different categories that you want to interact with, right? So various trends, I think, happening at a given point of time. Very difficult to point that this is a trend or this is the way forward, right? So that's why this discussion makes it very unique. Yeah, I think there are several trends which are coming at the same time, both in so-called the imported business, in the craft business, in the domestic business. So let's open the forum and speak to all the panelists out here. I think the first thing to start with for me is the whole trend of the craft beverages, right? This is not for India, but I think internationally that's a trend which we see across. We see a lot of local support coming for the artisan and craft beverages. People like to support it because they think it's a local produce. There is a local flavor profile to it. So I think that's a trend which is really, really very interesting. I would like to invite Anand to speak on this trend or anything else that you want to speak on. Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah, anything.
Okay. Sumit, thank you. Lovely to be here as part of the panel. I think obviously it's interesting when you ask the question about, you know, what's going to be the next one. I wish, like you, I wish I knew the right answer. I think everyone pretty much wishes they know the right answer because we'll all jump on that boat and hopefully see the next 10, 20 years through. I think when we started working on our gin product, and I can only look back, right? It's hard to look in the to the future. But when we started on the gin space, everyone kind of looked at us to say that, well, whoever looked at us, not everyone, whoever looked at us at that point said, listen, why are you bothering? India is a brown spirits market. We all know that it's 97% brown spirits. Everyone's fighting for the pie, which is whiskey. You know, everyone's investing in whiskey, especially multinationals, etc. And at that point, I guess a lot of domestic players had also started. So I guess the answer to the question that we posed today was whiskey. It's been blended whiskey, it's going to be single malt whiskey, but whiskey is going to become, the answer to that question as to where the growth is going to come from. And if not whiskey, then, we like other, youngsters should follow in Ankur Jain's, footsteps and have our own craft beer, right? Because, look how much money they're making, etc. So we were told even by our closest mentor at that point to, he would guide us through the entire conversation, see our presentation, and then at the end of the conversation, while we were leaving, he'd say, yeah, guys, all this is great, but beer banao na. Gin, no one drinks gin, why are you? So 2017, premium gin as a category in India was at 10,000 cases. 2022 is grown. So 5 years it's grown from 10,000 cases to 320,000 cases, which is massive. And it's only going in that direction. We're seeing growth, especially in the premium gin side, at 30, 40, 50%, which is incredible for a specific category to do. Having said that, it's a very small category. So if I was to answer the question which says, listen, where is the growth going to come from? I'm hoping the answer is gin. But if not gin, obviously there's a lot of conversations around, indigenous products like Feni, Mahua. There's been conversations around rum. When I first went to Bar Convent, Berlin in 2016, I went in with this hope, thinking that, okay, I'm going to learn all this about gin because I'm about to launch, a gin brand in a year's time, and sat down at sessions like this where everyone was talking about the death of gin. Gin has come and gone, and now what's next? Next is rum, right? And it scared me to be like, listen, we haven't even started. What do you mean gin is gone? Thankfully, that I think only applied to the global scale, though even on the global scale, we've seen the UK market, for example, grow from what was a 750,000 pound market in 2014 to 2018, 2 years after that conversation which I heard, to a 2 billion pound market, and post which by 2020 it had reached 3 billion pounds. So that's also growing globally. But yes, I think there is an excitement around rum. There is an excitement around, obviously, whiskey and single malt whiskey and everything. And I think locally I've seen a lot of people talk about, Feni, Mahua, and outside of India, a lot of people talk about tequila, which somehow still hasn't hit India, I guess, because of our duties, etc. So these are some of the interesting bits that at least I've heard. I'm sure Young Dub in his time behind the bar would have heard of all of these as well.
Sure. So we can move to Mr. Lama and take his feedback on the same. By the way, everybody is talking about the classic cocktail is back as a trend, right? You see so many brands going behind Martini again. They're going behind margaritas and Negronis of the world. And the point of difference they say is that now we are looking at premium quality ingredient so that the cocktail can shine by itself, right? That's a trend which again you see or hear a lot. What's your perception on this or the categories that we just talked about?
I think when it comes to categories of the future, it's very difficult to say. Our learnings from whatever's happened in the past, if you look at, let's say, the gin scene in India in the last couple of years, one of the key factors is also about a lot of people making the right noise at the right time. I think that really helps for a particular category because you make the right noise, it resonates with the consumer, and therefore it helps the category. It may not help a specific brand, but it tends to help that category. I think today we do see a lot of, indigenous spirits kind of making that kind of a noise, but it isn't as big, right? But we do hope that if the noise is right, and if it is done by enough people, I'm sure it will definitely resonate with the consumer, with people like us who run bars or who are people behind the bar making drinks, and therefore it will definitely make that category a popular one in the near future. But having said that, when it comes to, let's say, your question to classic cocktails, these are drinks which has stood the test of time, right? So it's been there, it was always there. It worked well with the consumers of the past, it's working well with the consumers of the present. and it's there for a reason. So therefore, it'll always be there. So I think having said that, what remains the core for any spirit to be the spirit of the future is that you got to focus on the spirit. If it is a good quality spirit, making the right noise with originality and the right story, it's definitely going to resonate with the consumer.
No, definitely. I think if you look at the numbers that were thrown in last year, we saw the industry grew by almost 20%. I know this was after the decline we saw during COVID, but there was still 2021 and then 22 came in. And I mean, the numbers which came out were really, really very interesting, that besides spirits, we saw categories like RTD growing. There was a jump of almost 39% over the previous year, right? We saw beer, which went up really well. So there are a lot of categories that we see as a trend, they come along. Many times we focus on spirit as a category because that's the biggest that we have, right? We say 370 plus million cases of spirits which is being consumed in India. But at the same time, you see the growth which is coming is much faster in RTD as a space, or I would like to say wine as well, but yes, wine as a space as well. So in RTD, anything that you would like to see, what is the trend that you are looking at? What's your viewpoint on that?
Yeah, sure. I think with RTDs as well, I think the future is something that's like a synergy between gin and, let's say, RTDs are gin-based RTDs, and that's like an opportunity for even this space to step into the whole premiumization trend that's occurring across the country. I think traditionally RTDs in India have been Bacardi Breezas, or recently some very wild card brands like Bro Code that are wine based sell themselves in bottles that look like beer bottles, and sort of like capturing parts of the beer industry, which has also happened globally with White Claw, let's say, capturing 5% of the mild beer industry in the US, and similar trends in Europe as well. And that's sort of what I hope to see in the RTD industry in India. Hopefully, I mean, I think RTD is a very, very fun space because, it's you could really take inspiration from anything. We've taken inspiration from cocktails. We've taken inspiration from coffee culture. We have a coffee caramel flavor that we've just launched. At the same time, we have a rum and cola flavor. So really, I think it's just, you can just have fun with it and really tailor your experience to what consumers want and really listen to them, which I think a traditional space like spirits or beer can't necessarily do, because the lines are quite rigid, whereas RTDs are so undefined that you can really have fun with them and respond very, very quickly to consumer demand. So I'm hoping, I'm hoping that consumers from all ages and all segments experiment with RTDs, because it's not just a teenager's drink, although of course they're below the LDA, or a women's drink, but it's and we're already seeing that actually with people drinking brown spirits, like people buying 180 ml white brown spirits actually are switching to RTDs like ours, very early stages, but I think that there's scope for consumers from all segments to replace a few of their weekly or monthly drinking occasions with RTDs.
Sure. I mean, I think as a global strategy, you see there are a lot of trends coming across various markets where the ready-to-drink cocktails and mixed drinks, I think it's a trend which is still catching up, and we see the numbers that we just discussed last year with a growth of almost 39% year on year. I think it's a big opportunity there to explore. Yes, currently role is probably taken by one or two brands, but it's an opportunity for many more to come and enjoy that particular segment. Yeah. So when we're talking about trends, I think another thing which come forward is the innovation. I think a lot of people look at using the specific ingredients belonging to a particular region. People are trying different herbs, fruits, spice. So a lot of flavor profile innovation is happening across. I would like to invite Dr. Oni to put your viewpoint on that.
Yes. So it was very interesting to notice that even in this conversation, when different kinds of, or what is going to be new in Alcobev industry, mead did not even make a cut in a list of types or categories of alcoholic beverages that we just discussed. So I'm going to start with, for those who already don't know what mead is. Mead is an alcoholic beverage that's made by primarily fermenting honey. Honey as a primary ingredient when fermented gives you mead, like how fruits give you wine and how grains give you beer. Honey when fermented, that is when you get mead. That's the basic definition, and then you can further combine honey with different fruits, spices and herbs to add variety to that drink. Honey by itself is a very terroir-specific ingredient based on the geography, the climatic condition, the soil, the kind of rainfall the particular place gets. Different kind of flowers bloom, and each and every geographical location will have its own unique flavor profile of honey. And as you correctly just said, we can have a lot of fun with meads because you get to combine these differently flavored honeys with different ingredients, which can be local, global, whatever. Sky is the limit when it comes to innovation, when you're talking about meads. And furthermore, the most important part, at least for me, or rather for Sirana, is that it indeed is the most sustainable alcoholic beverage that is known to mankind. And I'm happy to tell you that when we thought of making mead, we found many like-minded people who also wanted to start their journey down this path, which, by the way, was extremely hard. We had to start from getting the government to agree to allow us to ferment honey, and that is where it started. Till only 3 days back, I thought that Maharashtra was the first state to allow honey fermentation and identify mead as a category. But I was corrected by a fellow mead maker, Priyanka Save from Arka Meads. She said that Himachal Pradesh was the first one, and the credit goes to some Raja Sahab who was there, who was fond of meads. So Himachal Pradesh was a state that first I allowed honey fermentation and allowed to make the industry to make mead. But I'm proud to say that Maharashtra was the first state to actually come up with a meadery. We followed in a close second. The category by itself is very green because you're using honey as a raw material, which there is zero carbon footprint in farming because you are not dependent on farming to get your honey. So that is where mead is set apart from all the rest of the beverages. Very versatile in terms of flavors, can be used in cocktails, can be mixed with gins. Very versatile. You can make meads with honey, wine grapes. You can make meads with malts. So in terms of slotting it into category, mead is friends with everyone. Mead is everyone's brother or sister. So I would like to see that trend growing. Literally every locality can come up with their own very unique, very special produce, and that is how the category is going to develop.
Yeah, very much. I think go local is the category that we're looking at. So any local ingredients that we can use and create some new category or trend, we are more than happy to welcome it. I also think another category which is still underplayed is cider, right? Many countries that you travel who are big on beer. We're not very big on beer, but still we have about 300 plus million case consumption for beer every year. When I compare it with the cider, it's almost negligible. And I understand it's somewhere statutory requirement which makes it a bit more tough, high taxation as compared to beer, so it's not in the same kind of price parity. But that's another trend I think should be catching up because we like fruits, we like fruity style, we like apples, we like pears, so there's no reason why it should not be doing well. But that's a category again, something very, very interesting.
again, that's where mead comes very importantly into picture, because there are so many fruits which on their own cannot be fermented into something that is marketable. And then winemakers have to add sugar to it. And then there are certain regulations to how much sugar can be added. And immediately the government support wanes down. For example, in Maharashtra, making cider is an expensive affair because there is no support to the Maharashtrian farmer when a cidery is using apples to make their alcoholic beverage. So suddenly tax goes up. But now combine that apple with a honey that you're probably locally sourcing, and government support is there in your favor, because now you're helping some beekeeper from within the state, which is something that the government wants. So
definitely food for thought.
I'm just here to keep on saying mead, mead, mead. That's all.
Why not?
So I'm just going to keep on butting in.
No, we are more than happy to push this category up. I think another trend that we have seen across is the premiumization, right? We see with the higher disposable income, people are going for better quality food and beverage, right? And we have seen even the trend, whether you look at the premium restaurants coming, premium bars coming, certainly we see our bars featuring top 50 best Asia bars, restaurants featuring there. The retail is growing very, very well. And, we've gone from the traditional retail stores to ultra premium retail stores for liquor. So I think all that is indicative of premiumization in the consumption pattern. And that's something which we also saw from the numbers which came out, that growth of the premium segment, although they define 1,000 plus as a premium segment, to me it's not, but okay, 1,000 plus as a premium segment, it grew faster than below sub 1,000 as a price category. So that's again another very positive trend, and we do see that there's a lot of endorsement coming from the consumer for better quality, more premium spirits and wine for that matter. Any feedback on that? Mr. Lama, would you like to say anything on that?
Yeah, I think that's definitely going to be there with the way we are going and the way we are evolving as a consumer. With disposable income, you also have a disposable desire, right? So you also, you start off with something, because the reason for, let's say, especially when it comes to alcohol, it's not a need, it's purely about experiencing it. So, if you're thirsty, you don't necessarily have to drink alcohol. While you're hungry, you need to eat food. So with alcohol, the first time you sip on alcohol is not because you like it, but because you want to see what it does to you. And from there, it grows upon you, right? So, and then everything else then kind of happens with the way you develop and evolve. And that's why I think premiumization of alcohol kind of happens. In today's date, one of the reasons that I feel, and I can see it a lot in bars like ours, is that I see a consumer who is more conscious. Very, very conscious of the fact that we are using good quality ingredients that is less harmful to your body. And I think that is what is then leading to the fact that, okay, if this is a good quality ingredient, I'm okay to shell out a little extra money for it. Same thing when it comes to alcohol. You have a stronger story, like when you talk about mead, you're not only talking about the end product, you're talking about how you actually work very closely with the farmers to get a particular type of flavor in your honey, and then work with collaborators to get the right kind of variety within your category. I think that's exciting. At the same time, it's also telling you a stronger story than just a finished product. And that resonates again with the consumer, right? And therefore, in today's date, automatically, the fact is, if it is good, I'll pay for it.
Yeah, so premiumization in the gin category, right, Anand? So I think it's a very important learning for all of us, because you were the first one to take the Indian gin from, I won't be wrong saying that a synthetic sort of profile gins to actual quality craft gin. So, and in many markets you compete with some of the imported gins which are probably same price or maybe lower price than your gin. I understand there's cost involved, there's a positioning for the brand which is what is putting that cost up. How do you feel, and what's been your success rate with that?
I think we were worried about that initially, where we really thought that, and we grew up in the 90s, where local meant cheap. Local meant, if you bought something and you called it local, and specifically local, was, it's going to fall apart, it's inferior quality, it's not going to be good, right? And suddenly here we were making a local product, but the word local has taken on a different meaning, which even in 2017 when we launched Greater Than, we didn't realize. We were very worried about it, but the reason we were taking that step was because we happened to be at the right place at the right time, ear to the ground. We were, running a bar in Delhi called Perch, where we were hearing people come in and say, hey, can I get a gin and tonic with 3 slices of cucumber? Or can I get a, monkey 47? Or, can I get this? And we're like, where have you guys been? Because this was definitely not the situation 5 years before that, when I was involved with launching Hendrix. No one wanted to touch it. No one wanted to touch gin as a category. We were scraping the bottom of the barrel to try and sell 50 cases a year. Right? So from that in 2010 to, people coming into, our bar and saying, hey, listen, can I get, craft gin? What craft gin do you have? It was unthinkable that a change like that had come so quickly. And in fact, with that in mind, probably Yangdup's the right person for everyone to talk to every once in a while to say, listen, what are people asking for? I think that's where you'll really understand where the next big thing is going to come from, if at all. But if they're saying gin, great, keep at it. If they're saying mead, keep at it. I think we're seeing with our consumer, they definitely care more about what they put in their body. And I think they're understanding that drinking or consuming is effectively putting something into your body. It's as primal as that. And they care more about, again, this is probably the tip of the iceberg, right? Most people are still very price conscious and does it fit in my budget? Does it make me look nice and everything? But there's definitely a segment of people that care about what they're drinking. They will go out and make the effort to find out more about, we get the question, where are you sourcing the ingredients from? Right? Where are you getting the bottles from? So people are so aware. And the fact that they have direct access to us from with regards to social media, the channel of communication, they want to know and they can know. And that really is what makes a product premium, is if we can justify the effort that's going into making a product, what it is, then it makes sense. So for me as well, when we launched 2 products, right? For me, already Greater Than was premium gin, right? Because it's above the 1,000 rupee mark. The only other competitor in India before that was Blue Ribbon, which was 300 rupees a bottle. So this is 3 times the price. Obviously, it's premium. But I was surprised that with Hapusa, which is 3 times the price of Greater Than, there is still a demand there as well. And again, my initial reaction to that was, it's just, maybe it's people just wanting to say, I'm having a more expensive gin than yours. It's not that. People genuinely care about, the story, and they want to know where the juniper is coming from. Why are people around the world not using it? Where, can we go on this, we do a trip up to the mountains, can we go on this trip with you? We really want to see the juniper, we really want to see this. So there is that desire, sure, it's still a small segment, but more and more people are joining that, where they want to know how the bartender is making, their drink. What kind of lime are they using? What kind of botanicals are we using? Where are they coming from? Is the honey, sustainably sourced? It's a big thing, right? And people want to come on these tours. Again, I don't think we were prepared for it, but people are definitely, reaching out to us all the time saying, hey, can I come visit your distillery? Why? Why do they want to come see a distillery? Is because they want to enhance their knowledge, their experience of a particular product, of a particular category, which I don't think has ever happened before. So again, going back to the question of what's next, what's going to be the next, growth driver, I think whatever's able to justify its position as something of interest for the consumer. That's where it's going to come from. It doesn't matter what all of us do. We can build it, but they won't come until they themselves are interested in it.
I can't agree more, definitely.
Yeah, actually, to add to that, I think premiumization is not just about price or making things more expensive. I think it's really just about listening to the consumer, because there are some segments.
It's a quality. The first point is better quality product.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's a price tag to it. That's a different thing, right?
Yeah.
Consumer is looking for that premium experience. And I remember 30 years back when I started with the hospitality industry, the trend that time was use whatever you need to use to make a cocktail. As long as it tastes the profile the way it is, it's okay. But that doesn't work anymore, because you want the same drink. Now you want to know what are the spirit or what's the ingredient are you using as part of that. So that's something which again is what we discussed, that consumer is asking for better experience, better quality, and that is something which is sometime reflected in the price as well. That was the point earlier.
Yeah.
Please.
Well, I mean, just to add to that, because some segments don't have as much acceptance in the market as yet. Speaking again of ready to drink, I would say, because like again, I reiterate that the perception has been, oh, it's a breezer, but it's so much more than that. I think it's just opening up the possibilities and the instances in which people can consume alcohol. But also it allows for an experience in which you're not always having to be drunk or completely inebriated always. So yeah, but it's still a very unknown space. So to charge a very high price tag for a relatively unknown type of product won't do so well for you instantly. So I think some categories would have to have a more premium offering with a slightly more affordable price tag.
So I absolutely wholeheartedly agree with what you said. When you're talking about new categories, the focus cannot exclusively be on premiumization, because you want to make that category popular, and India is a very price-sensitive market. Brand loyalty in terms of alcohol, unless you're talking about the premium segment, is very, very low. When you go out for party, you're just going to buy something that is affordable, that you can buy in large quantities. So any new category that is trying to establish itself will always go for a basic product, which is probably relatively cheap to make, although not compromising on their basic policies of where they're sourcing their ingredients from, etc. And then probably look at premiumization at a later stage, which many successful brands have done till date. I don't want to cite names, but many good wineries have also started by making some basic sweet wine that has sugar added to it, made with basic grapes. And then once their base is set, they have started going into standard premium elite segments. So I think when you're talking about new categories, premiumization comes at the end of that road. It does not start from premiumization unless, if you have immensely deep pockets.
No, of course. So if you can premiumize at the start, everybody will wish to do it. But then again, it is the business model, the size of the market, what's in the play area. That's obviously needs to be looked at. So I think we are at the last leg of it. So what I want to do here, yes, I will. So what I want to do here is, beside the current play area for you, gin or whatever, what do you think trend, which is not the play area, I'm sure that's a trend anyway for you, what else you think could be the trend moving forward for next 2-3 years? Yeah, so just a quick one. What's the category, say beside gin in your case?
RTD and mead.
Fantastic.
I think
we are
rum
all
is
in it together, man.
Sorry? Yeah.
We are all in it together.
Maybe, yeah. No, I think honestly it's everywhere. There's so many stories to tell in India. That's why when so many people ask, hey, you've suddenly got a lot of competition. There's a new gin brand opening. In fact, Youngdub's asked this a couple of times. There's a new gin brand launching every week. Aren't you worried? I think it's great. It's a good sign when you have so many new entrants. One, because there is so much to tell. There are so many. India is the spice capital of the world. Of course, you're going to get lots of gins, lots of botanicals coming from India. And likewise, all these other, spirits and beverages that rely on flavors and aromas, because this is really the capital, that we're not just capital of India, but the capital of the spice trade, around the world. So it makes sense that we've got a lot of different categories being explored pretty much at the same time. Specific to us, and I guess we haven't really talked about it much, we are just stepping into maybe exploring the premium rum space ourselves.
Great.
So I hope that's the one.
Thank you.
I think Indian spirits, so like Mahua, Feni, things like that don't really have great PR as of yet. That they are beginning to have that. But I think if Mexico can have tequila and we have Scotch, so why not? why not Mahua and Feni? Why not?
Of course.
Yeah, I think what my mind tells me is that there's going to be a fair amount of, I do not know in terms of numbers, but definitely in terms of excitement. There's going to be a lot as far as the indigenous Indian spirits are concerned. I do see that there's going to be enough noise in the next few years. But what I wish to happen, or what I wish that should happen, is more bars led by bartenders, which keeps all of us happy. Right? So whether it's a gin producer or a whiskey maker or a meat producer, I think we'll keep everybody happy then.
Very true. How about you? No?
No, I just like what he said, that's all.
Okay, fantastic. So, there are a lot of categories which are in opportunity areas for sure. One thing that I definitely want to put in there is, I cannot not just speak about wine, right? So for me, one category which I think could be a good potential moving forward is the rosé wine as a category. I believe, and I thoroughly believe that rosé wine as a category has a great potential for India, whether it's our cuisine, whether the climate, that weather that we have in India. It's a fantastic opportunity. It's just that it's very small at this point of time, but I do see that this is a category which is definitely going to really mount up over a period of time, and both in still as well as in sparkling. So that's another category that I feel is something which has a very strong play for the Indian market in time to come. Yeah. So before we just wind up or conclude, anyone has any questions for the panelists?
I have a question from Suramya, sorry. Yeah, Suramya, hi, I'm Saurabh Tyagi, and as I'm into film industry, I travel a lot. As a consumer, I love to drink sometimes when you get down, at airport, daytime में, तो आप कई बार कुछ light से लेकर आप पसंद करते हो, लेकिन breezer and all, why they have too much of sugar? So do you have any way to cut down, like?
Our let's say sugar content or overall sweetness is much lower than that. Once you've tasted them, you can decide for yourself. But that was a conscious choice. Obviously inspired by hard seltzer trends across the world and also in India, where people really want zero sugar and low alcohol. But India is not that market yet in terms of volume for completely zero sugar alcohol, I would say, or let's say ready to drink zero sugar. But I completely agree with you. I think one of the barriers to breezers, if I may say so, being accepted by more than the small population segments that they've been relegated to, would be the highest levels, like not highest, high levels of sweetness. And I think at Rascal, that's the name of our RTD brand. We really aim to serve segments that are not just young people and women, but also have flavor profiles that serve men, seasoned drinkers, beer drinkers, and really trying to break the mold of what an RTD is, and also have lower levels of sweetness. So I hope we've answered that for you with our product.
I hope. Yeah.
Any more questions?
Yeah, hi. My name is Vishal. I had one perspective and a question too. So, for example, you're talking about new craft brands, you're talking about indigenous and the flavored, concepts which are coming in. If there's a company which is a family business company, vis-a-vis a multinational, so, it's great to conceptualize that into your lab or your distillery or your bottling plant. And like, for example, Greg Glallen, you're from Indore. So, but if you're not a multinational and you do these products, I mean, gin, Hendrix is okay once in a while, but in a realistic way, how do you compete with a same category of brand coming from the majors like Diageo, Seagram's? And even if I conceptualize it, I make it a crafty, so, yeah.
I think that's a really good question, actually. One of the multinationals would require so many levers to a new category like RTDs, being nimble and listening to consumers. And being able to do that would be, let's say, one way that we can, at least persevere to have some sort of a hold on the market.
Yeah. So I think we have a best answer here for this category, because we have seen a success story with the Indian gin. We were just discussing that, which was not acknowledged earlier. From there to the point where we have so many new brands coming up as an aspiration from what happened with the Greater Than, right? So would you like to share your viewpoint on that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and it's something we grappled with as well, to say, listen, who are we to go in and try and enter a category where I think at that point Seagram's gin had just exited. So in our minds, we really thought we were missing something. Because if someone like a Pernod had withdrawn a product from a semi-premium, kind of a category, there was clearly, the market was saying something, and obviously Pernod would have their, a finger on the pulse. So even in the process when we were, kind of working on our product, we kept thinking we're missing something and we're oblivious to something, and, it's going to come and bite us in our backside, etc. But I think the one thing we realized is, if you are convinced and you know that you have the audience for it, then the audience wants you more than they want a large, product coming from an MNC. It's great. They will have the money to throw at the problem. And they will have, for example, the best bars in the country. They will just be able to pay, and you will just not be able to enter in there. And that's fine. That's something, we have to live with and work around. But what we really found was that the consumer responded to our authentic, original story. They wanted to know about us. And even today on Instagram, right, which is a very, direct barometer for us to gauge. On Instagram, the pictures that do well are images of us as humans, us as people, and which is why it's important for us to tell the human story, which honestly a large company will never be able to compete with. They may have all the money in the world, but who are they going to be able to talk about? There are brands that are now starting to put their distiller at the forefront. But at the end of the day, if you are, the maker, or, if you go out to a bar or an event and you have the makers of the product talking to you, you are sold. And you will tell your 20 friends about this product, and that is how word will spread.
Yeah, absolutely. Why I said this, for example, if you're in the US and you say that your brand belongs to Texas or Houston, then they take a lot of pride in that. And that automatically starts going on the retail, whether it's specs, whether it's anything. But in India, the county feeling is still not there. So suppose somebody is based in Goa or somebody is here. So it takes a lot of strength to fight that distribution and get a war with the same category of brand. That's what I feel.
Sure.
Hi, my name is Sanjay, and I'm a content creator. I have a little funny question, however, it is very important. My question goes to Mr. Lama sir. Sir, in India, there's a general concept about cocktail, that if you drink rum, gin, vodka, whiskey together, it became a cocktail inside your belly. I mean to say, a general public have this kind of thought about cocktail. They don't understand what is exactly a cocktail. Cocktail is a art of making drink. So my question is to you, sir, how we can establish these things, that it is a luxury item or it is a very good item, which is completely different, whatever we are thinking, which is not. So, a very simple question.
Dada is always looking for content. I think it is purely about how bars and bartenders drive it. Just like the Spiritz story or the meat story or the RTD story, I think we need to tell that story in the right way, to the right audience at the right place. If you are able to communicate that and then, back it up with a great product, I'm sure the consumer will always be able to, first of all, respect the craft of the bartender and also at the same time experience a fine cocktail.
Sumit, with your permission, can I invite Amar Shrivastava, who has actually courage to come out with the cider in the country. He's here with us. So can I ask him what future does he behold for the cider as a category in the country?
Well, it's a interesting category. I think. Just a second. Okay. So, being in this industry since last 15 years, worked with a lot of craft brands and all, and started with a microbrewery where I was making ciders and all. Okay, mead was one of the other things. Beers were a lot of styles that we have explored during our 15 years of journey that we had. Okay, ciders is a very niche category. Okay, this has a very how I say that, it has a different mindset, okay, and which is a very corrupted mindset. Like I go to the people and then tell that okay, we make ciders, okay. The first thing that they ask, yeah, I take 2 spoons every morning. That's the cider vinegar, okay. So this is something which, there is a concept building, okay. There's an education that every new category has to go through. Okay, every new product has to go through. There is a lot of energy, there is a lot of efforts that needs to be done to create that. And yeah, we are also dealing with the same thing. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
Wish you all the best for that. Thank you. Any last question? Are we good? Perfect. Well, thank you so much. You have been a great audience. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your time.
Well, thank you so much to the entire panel and Mr. Mandala for moderating this session so well. I would request all of you to please step forward for the group picture. I'd request Mr. Bishan Kumar to please join the group picture. And once again, I'd like to thank the entire panel for a lively and meaningful discussion. It is so good to know about the futuristic approach and the drinks of the future. And ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to bid adieu to the yet another enlightening ThinkPad session for this year, and there has been so much of knowledge sharing by all our speakers, and it indeed has been a wonderful day till now with all the speakers at all the ThinkPad sessions. And we would like to take this opportunity to show our deepest gratitude to all the speakers as well as to all the audience members for being a lovely, lovely audience. But this is not the curtains for Spiritz Conclave and Achievers Awards 2023. We're going to see you on the other side of the break. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the much awaited Spiritz Achievers Awards will kick off after the break at 7 p.m. I would request the invited guests to please join us at the same place for the Spiritz Achievers Awards. I know it's going to be a much awaited high energy evening. So this is it from the ThinkPad Sessions for Spiritz Conclave 2023. We're going to see you at 7 p.m. same place for the Spiritz Achievers Awards. Thank you so much.